Hello my friends, and welcome to this next video in the series where we should be talking about dates in JavaScript. Date is an important part of coding, and programmers use it to keep track of things, keep track of events, and so on and so forth. We can work with the date object in JavaScript and use it as a timestamp for data stored in a database. For example, we have a product stored in a database. We can have the product name, the product price, and then we can have the time that product was actually created. We can also extract important information from our dates in JavaScript, such as the year, the months, the days, even the seconds, and so on and so forth. Right away, let's jump into our VS Code and see how dates can be used in JavaScript. On the left here is my VS Code, and on the right is my browser. And you can see right here we already have a title of dates, and we have this body which has the h1 tag of learning JavaScript and our script tag right here, which is currently empty. Now what I'm going to do is actually introduce an history tag and a paragraph tag. The history tag says working with date, and then the p tag is empty but having an ID of date. Now when I save, you can see this is what we have. We're going to be displaying our date inside of this paragraph tag. So let's go to our scripting.js file and grab that paragraph tag. So I'm going to say document.getElements by ID of dates. And we're going to store this in const dates paragraph. Now, in order to work with date in JavaScript, we use the date constructor to create a new date. So we can say new date, like so. And then we can also store this new date in a variable. So we can say const our date is equals new date. And let's display this, our date, on the web page. So I'm going to get our date paragraph and make the inner HTML to become our date. And when I save, you can see the date appears right here. And we're having this background color because of our styling. If you go to the styles and go to the paragraph, you can see we have a background color of bisque, this width of fit content, and so on and so forth. And let me add a padding all around of 0.5 rem so we can have some space within the paragraph. So yes, this is what date looks like. This is how JavaScript would usually display dates on the web page. We have the day, Thursday, and the month is October 3rd, 2024. So this date is my current date and it's based on my time zone or the time zone of the browser that you're using. So currently my browser's time zone is set to China Standard Time. So it's going to display that time right here. Whatever time zone you're in when you're coding along or when you're trying to work with this code, you're going to have it right there. But sometimes we don't want our dates to look so complex like this. We just want to get something very simple. By default, JavaScript uses a method called toString to display the date. So if we come right here and say our date.toString, like so, and save, we'll still have the same thing. And when we're working with date, the clock does not tick. What that means is that right now we're having Thursday, October 3rd, 2024, and the time is 18:11:42. This 42 is the seconds, this 11 is the minutes, and the 18 is the hour. So it's not going to keep going like 43, 44, 45, like a ticking clock. You're just going to get the date and the time at that particular instant. But when we refresh, you see that now we have 12:45, we go on 12:48, 12:49, 12:50, and so on and so forth. So if we want to see change, we have to refresh. So it only gets the date and time at that particular instant. It doesn't keep on ticking like the clock. The string method right here is the default method that JavaScript uses to display the time. And that's why you have it like this. But we can use other methods to have a more concise display of the dates. For example, we have .toDateString right here. And when we save, we'll just get the Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. We also have toUtcString, and this is what we get. UTC stands for Coordinated Universal Time. So it's a standard time for timekeeping all over the world, and it does not change with seasons and stuff like that. And it's not based on any other time zone. So this is like the standard time. And now you can see that we have Thursday, October 3rd, 2024, but now the time is 10:14 a.m. But if we were to remove the UTC string right here and save, we can see that the time is actually 18:15 p.m. based on my time zone. But if we make it UTC string, then we get the standard time right here. Another useful method that we can use is to isostring. So isostring method returns the date like this. You can see we have the year 2024 and the month October 3rd, and then you have a T. After the T, you have the hour, which is 10 a.m., 16, which is the minutes, and then 27.308, which is the seconds, and then you have the Z. This T is just used to separate the date right here from the time right here, and then the Z signifies that this time is following the UTC time. As you can see, it's no longer 18, that is 6 p.m. as we had before. It is now 10 a.m. So if I remove this one more time and save, we get back 18, that is 6 p.m. So our date dot to string, or our date like this, would return the time based on the browser's time zone or based on our time zone. There are other useful methods that we can use with the date. For example, we want to get the particular year right here from the date. Maybe we just want to work with a particular year and store it somewhere and all of that. We can use a method called get full year, and when we save, you see we just get the 2024 right here. We can also get the month, the days, and so on and so forth. For the month and the day, JavaScript usually return a number to us. So if I say get month, we're going to get 9. So for the month, it starts reading from 0. So we have 0 for January, 1 for February, 2 for March, and so on and so forth. Now, if we now want to get the particular month or the particular day, we'll have to have an array of the days or an array of the month and index into that array. So for example, I'm going to go up here and create an array for days. So right here, I have an array of days, and then I can index into this array and get the particular day. So right here, I can take this out and I'm going to say days and then paste that in. So our date.getMonth is going to return a number. For example, we returned 9. So with that 9, we'll index into the days here. And instead of get month, we're going to have get day, like so, and save. As soon as I save, see that we get back Thursday. And that's because today is actually Thursday, right now that I'm recording this video. And for month, we can do the same thing. We're going to have an array of month. So let me get that. Right here is an array of months. And then we can do our date.getMonth and save. And we're getting undefined. That's because we're having days here. So we're supposed to change this one to months and save. And now we're getting October. So this is how we can get the days, the months, and even the year from our date. And sometimes we just want to get the date as a number. For example, today is 3rd October. So we can just have it like our date dot get date. We use get date method right here. And when we save, you can see we have 3rd right here, or 3 rather. We can also get the hours, the minutes, and so on. So if we were to do get hours, you can see we get 18 because it's 6 p.m. right here. So this is how we can use some of these methods, the get hours, the get full year, the get months, and all the other methods to actually work with date and get the things that we want. There is one more method that we can also use to work with date, and that is the get time method. Unlike the other ones like get months and the get year or get full year and the get minutes, get hours, and so on and so forth, this get time returns a number in milliseconds. So when I save, we have this number here which represents the dates in milliseconds, and this date in milliseconds is the milliseconds that we've spent all the way from January 1st, 1970. And you can notice if I hover around this get time method here, you can see it says returns the stored time value in milliseconds since midnight January 1st, 1970 UTC. What that means is that what we're getting back is the date and time in milliseconds all the way from January 1st, 1970, not before that. January 1st, 1970 is just like a benchmark, and then we're getting the milliseconds we've spent after that. And we can also convert this number into a date to see that it is actually storing a date in milliseconds. So let me copy this right here And then if I were to put this here instead of our new date right here, and I'm going to return our date and save, you can see it gets back to me Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. So what that means is that this number right here is representing the date in milliseconds. And when we pass that number into the date right here, into the date constructor, and then try to display this on the browser, we get back our date. And that means if we try to play around with this number, so we're going to be getting different dates. So for example, if I put 447 here and save, now we're getting 2517. We've not even lived up to this, right? And if I reduce the number, try to manipulate it further, now we're getting Saturday, January 3rd, 1970. If I try to add 6 and save, we're getting January 21st. Let me add 7 and save. Now we're getting Monday, July, and so on and so forth. So this is how the dates are changing depending on the milliseconds that we're passing to it. And this is usually a useful way that programmers would usually get date and store it in a database. This will usually act like a timestamp for data stored in a database. So we can retrieve the number and then reconvert it back to something much more readable like this one. And if we were to say 0 right here and save, and we'll get Thursday, January 1st, 1970. And this time given here is based on the China Standard Time. You can see it has GMT plus 8 hours. That's based on our time zone. So if you're in a different time zone, or if your browser is set to a different time zone, then definitely you're going to see a different time right here. Now, aside from passing the date and time in milliseconds, we can also give a proper date string. So if I say something like 2023 November, which is 11, on the 23rd of November, and save, then you can see on the 23rd of November 2023, that day is Thursday, November 23, 2023. And so because we did not specify the time in hours, minutes, and seconds, and so on and so forth, it used the standard time based on our time zone. If we were to give the time, then it will be included here and represented in terms of the time zone. And this way of writing the date follows the ISO format. That's, first of all, we have the year, and then we have the month, and then we have the day, like so. This way of writing date, or the ISO way of writing date, is just to eliminate confusion regarding the representation of date and times by providing a very consistent format. So now, apart from writing the date, we can also include time, still in the ISO format, and I can say T to have the time, and let's assume it's 2:30 p.m. so that will be 14:30, and then let's say 12 seconds, like so. And after that, we're going to have a Z. So this is the full ISO way of writing date. You have the T right here, and then you have the Z. So if I save now, you can see that the date remains the same, but now the time is 22:30, which is 10:30 p.m. And that's because of our time zone. So it's going to add 8 hours to the time to represent it for this time zone, the China Standard Time. If we don't have the time there, it is going to default to this time right here, just the GMT plus 8 hours, and the time will be 8 o'clock. Now, there are other ways of writing the time. We can say March, the shorthand way of writing March, 23rd, and then comma 2020, like so. So when I say, you can say this is the date that we get here, and there can be other variations right here, but usually it is better to write it in the ISO format, where we just have the year, the month, and the particular day, like this. This way, there will be no confusion. But if you write it in some other way, different browsers might interpret the time differently. So it's always good to stick to this way of writing it. Another useful way of working with date is the date.now. This date.now returns the time also in milliseconds, and the now function right here is attached to the date class itself. So it's a static method. It doesn't work on an object. If you create an object, for example, we have our date, so we can say our date.now. If we do that, we'll get nothing here. So it's always going to be on the date itself. Yeah, and the date.now returns the current time in milliseconds. And again, we can transform this time into something much more readable. So we can take this out and we can create a new date and then paste it right there. And when we save, we get a much more readable stuff right here. Another useful static method is the date.parse. So I can have date.parse. And this date.parse will take in any date in string format. So I can say 2018 March 11th, like so. If I save this, it gives us a string as well. And now we can also convert this to a proper looking date. So we can say something like new date, and then we'll paste everything right there and save. So when I do that, you see that we're getting this right here, Sunday, March 11th, 2018. So this is how we can work with date. We can either get the date in milliseconds and use it to store something in the database, or as a timestamp of some data stored in the database, or use it for some other purpose. But then it's more concise if we have the time written in milliseconds, or if we can get the time in milliseconds. So that, my friends, brings us to the end of this particular video, where we're seeing some of the things that we can do with date in JavaScript. We can use the date.parse and provide a date string like this, and it returns the date in milliseconds. And we can also transform this date in milliseconds to a proper looking date. And we have date.now, which also returns the date in milliseconds, and we can also transform that. And we can see that when we're creating our date with the new keyword, we can pass in the string, a date string like this, or we can decide not to pass anything, in which case it is going to get the current date. And we can use methods such as get months, get full year, get hours, and so on and so forth to get the particular information that we want from that particular date. So that, my friends, brings us to the end of the video. See you in the next one.